What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Stardust here. Welcome back to a new video here on the YouTube channel. Today we are talking about something really cool, and that was that last night on Discord I managed to have a mini conversation with a developer who works on gear and progression. Now, the reason this is such a big deal is because I genuinely feel like this was a really good conversation to have, and I was glad that I was able to throw as much feedback in their face as humanly possible. And I do think it's important to showcase these things as much as we can, because it's such a big deal to be able to sort of have that kind of conversation, And before anyone says anything, no, I haven't all of a sudden forgotten the consumable situation. I'm just not talking about it anymore. I have truly exhausted everything that I've had to say. This was just something that I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to go through every single Discord message so you guys get the full context, including my messages, including the developers' messages as well. So here we go. So we'll start off. Have you had a chance to see any of the rewards yet for the raid coming? And if you have, would you say they drastically differ from other gear pieces? Like, for example, my fear is it will be OOT loot, but Sonic and Vibranium. Because as we all kind of agree, kind of universally, that OOT loot is not good. Right? It's bad. You know what I mean? And we don't want to just replace Cosmic and Cryo and stuff for Sonic and Vibranium just because that's lame. You know what I mean? That's really lame. So, then I got a response from Alex K, who, is the gear dude that I was talking to. And he said, question to your question. What about that set did you not like? What are parallels you did not want to see replicated? I cannot speak to the contents of the gear brackets for now, but whether or not it accomplishes that goal is dependent on what you find the failings to be. We have worked hard to make it good. We hope it meets some of that expectation. So, I responded. It's good that he responded, though, right? I didn't go out for him. He jumped in straight away and responded and was like, yo, okay, any feedback that you can give? So I said, so for me personally, the OOT loot was very situational and wasn't anything worth chasing unless I had a very specific build in mind. Other games have a loot drop that makes me play specifically to use that item because it drastically changes how I want to play. I didn't have that feeling for the OOT loot, and a lot of it I could throw away for a damage buff piece and a Tachyon Surge. I'd love to farm the raid for an item that makes what I play to use it and changes the way the Avengers play. So I use an example later on, but for me, you'll see that I am very much on the side of great loot can be great content, right? I just currently don't have a need to farm for any loot in this game at the moment because every build is carried by a set number of perks, and none of them really change up gameplay besides hiding the amazing combat would do this to do particle damage, so I'm just spamming the same attacks, which is a shame because the combat is goated. Now, for me personally, this has been a big issue with the game since day one. I don't want to have to be in a corner when it comes to gear because I have to do heavy combo finishes in order to actually have a build, right? So I'm hoping that any gear in the future definitely moves away from this. And then Dan, who's been really active on the Discord, said, okay, then give us a suggestion on making it better, please. So I was like, let's fucking do this, right? I've seen some amazing suggestions within the community on different perks, but for example, with the OOT gear, having super adapt to its moves with the loot that was picked up would have been absolutely amazing. So, for example, SA does the hammer slam that creates thunder AoE spots around him. You grind for Thor's melee piece, and you're able to do that. You'd only need to make one gear piece per hero if you went that hard, give it a drop rate of like 30%, and let people farm as much as humanly possible. What I mean by one gear piece is I don't mean remove the 4, I mean that if you go that crazy with it, then naturally you only need one gear piece per hero per mission if you want to go that hard, right? You know what I mean? Like, add skills to gear. I think that'd be sweet. Several of those points I agree upon, so all I can say is that I don't like gear being universal. Heroes are different, it's true, and gear needs to kind of follow suit to a degree, but to that end, damage buff existing will make any slash without it valuable is something we'll have to address later. Efforts were made to make the idea of team roles. The bar for making this gear good was dragged up through long weeks and playtesting. I want it to be both interesting and powerful, but I can only hope you feel the same. So I said in response to this, before anyone gets, I would say that most of the perks within game, however, are universal. Targeted vulnerability, damage buff, others can be found with multiple heroes, and none of that really makes a diverse build because everyone just wants to do more damage because that's key. We've seen it with build videos, I've done it, we've seen it with like taking down a villain as quick as possible. That is the name of the game. I could have the same range build set up on Black Widow to even Hulk. I'd love to see more unique perks that really could make an entirely new build. I would also say I really went in because I was desperate to get as much feedback in as possible, right? So I would also say that melee is absolutely weaker than range when it comes to gear. For example, you have to complete an entire combo to activate status effect, which could be interrupted easily during a fight, whereas ranged, you only have to hit once to activate a status. Stuff like that puts people off using melee builds. Then I got a response. Damage buff existing is a center point for any future plans with gear. It's really hard to make something match a 65% improvement to damage without things getting crazy. I understand that. I don't think I mentioned this, but I would personally then nerf damage buff. But if you're going to nerf damage buff, you have to raise every single perk up to be fun, unique, and powerful. We have to do something, whether it's match the numbers and accelerate the power creep or adjust it. Whatever we do, we need a systematic plan, and we are working on that, but do not have a concrete plan. Now, that's quite interesting to me, because obviously we've known that gear rework or whatever has been going on for several months now, and damage buff is one of the biggest parts of that. But I did also make a little saying on Twitter about how that I believe damage buff is a really good crutch for newer players, so I can understand why you might find that a little bit difficult to kind of like mix it up, you know? The reason I do personally push for unique perks that really change your hero is because gear can be its own content. Only with quality loot and endless farming, you'd have happy customers all the way to your next content release because people are scratching and clawing for that amazing gear piece. I had a gun in Division 2 called the Diamondback that did 3 million if lined up with a headshot, and I go on that game alone and play a few hours just to pew pew. Which is true, I absolutely love that weapon. Honestly, Borderlands does this as well, a lot of looters do this as well, it's really fun. So, 1, I was a tech build, so I don't know what it's like to get big headshots. 2, that works when all playable characters are in some way modular. Avengers has 2 flyers, and a dude who uses rocks as melee weapons. Some amount of personalization, fitting the theme of gear, should be included if appropriate. It's a matter of hitting those hero spots, and I absolutely agreed with this point. However, with that in mind then, each individual exotic should be, you know, literally unique. It should have something that matches that hero, you know, it should do something unique for that person, not like little boosts to different stats. That personalization would be so sick. As I said, if the OT had super adaptoid moves attached with a big number of stats, then you only need 1 gear piece per hero, a drop rate, and allow us to farm endlessly, and that would be that. I personally think you'd have a Borderlands situation where people would play for hours and farm rather than only 1 day a week. By 1 gear piece, I mean to earn the full gear system is perfect. So, of course, I've been playing a lot of Borderlands 3 lately, and I genuinely believe that there is a lot from that game that you could put into this game, and it would be amazing. Because, you know, people of all ages play Borderlands, right? Whether they should or they shouldn't is a totally different story. Yeah, I can't say much to that yet. I don't human words good, so better writers are helping me write an update to things. By the way, if you're wondering who came in, it was my dad. I think dinner's outside, but you know, the video comes first. Yeah, I can't say much to that yet. I don't human words good, so better writers are helping me write an update to things. So, that's brilliant, because that kind of indicates that there's a good chance that we're going to be seeing a blog very soon on gear from people who can actually write things, you know, just a little bit more eloquently than poor Alex over here, which is exciting, because obviously we saw on one of the weekly blogs that there was going to be some development updates coming along, so hopefully we see them soon. Progression, and this is what Alex works on. Progression, I work solely on gear, XP, and resource gain. I plan out the progression and growth of a player in terms of gameplay, gear, and perks. I started doing this at the start of the year, and my first patch update was the Hive Mind update to make Potinator perks match the status effects. Then I did the gear rework in 1.7. Now, I know a lot of people, because I got a few people messaging me about this, if Alex was the person that did the ding stuff. If he did, it definitely wasn't his writing in the end. I think any wording that he said was misconstrued into a really sassy post. The raid gear would be the first set I planned out from start to finish, which is cool, so we get to see if Alex's kind of vision on gear is kind of how we all want it to be, if you know what I mean. And then I said, what's your overall opinion of loot in its current state? I just wanted to get his general thoughts. He seemed like someone who knows sort of how the community is feeling. I'm working on it. It's getting updates. Updates are just one thing at a time. Large systematic changes cause other issues, so we've had to move slowly at first. I made some VFX, timers, explosions, sound effects for things I've never done before. When I got the redacted to arc out looking like redacted, it was cool. I met my stretch goals for hero-specific mechanics. So I got excited, and I went hero-specific mechanics, so there's things in this raid that certain heroes cannot do. And then I got a response of hero-specific perks or perk mechanic additions. Now, if that turns out to be the case, and each of these gear pieces have hero-specific perks, then that is great. And that really excites me to be able to jump in this raid and actually use those perks. We have several people working on fixing the reward cadence, which is a thing I can help manage to make the time spent feel rewarding, but it's not specifics I can go into, which is absolutely fine. And then I said, this is why I keep pushing the notion of quality gear is content. And then I got a reply of something I agree with, but it's a chicken and egg thing, engagement versus approachability. So complexity can make people not play an activity, both in rewards or game mechanics. The idea of quality gear is an intent that has not been fully shaped. I understand that kind of like complexity can make people a little bit nervous, but there is a way to do both. There is a way to kind of have like really in your face, obviously good gear, and good gear that is built up with a build, right? You can have both at the same time, in my personal opinion. And then I said, I think if you can make gear that maybe adds a new skill for exotics, adds slight variations, like Avengers Dad Gamer mentioned Widow's guns having AoE explosives, instead with big splash damage with elements perhaps, I don't think that's too complicated, and at the same time is visually appealing. And I do believe, yeah, there you go. So that was literally the last of it. So I had a really nice conversation there, and I do think it addresses kind of some of the issues that people have been having with gear. I am definitely more interested in the raid than I was previously, and that just shows how important communication can be and how good a good conversation can be. And it definitely makes people sort of like, okay, maybe this is going to be different. Maybe things are going to be exciting, you know. So I'm definitely, you know, quite hopeful for the loot coming out of the raid. But let me know what you guys get out of this, and I will see you all later. Peace.